Welcome to tonight's episode of In the Multitude of Counsel. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on a mental health illness called depression. It's a serious malady and is impacting lots of people throughout the nation. We tonight want to focus on the symptomology, look at the causes, and also kind of give some practical information on treatment.
So some of the many ways that depression folds in a person's life, it hits in different situational types of situations that people go through. Sometimes we know that there's some developmental or some genetic types of issues that can manifest. But we also know that sometimes just life issues, just general situations can. Some of those situations might include grief and loss. And I know that that is a very broad topic. So let's talk a little bit about the various ways that grief and loss can impact someone that's dealing with depression.
Wow. Well, when you think about just grief and loss, a lot of times people might attribute that to like the death of a loved one, which I mean, that definitely is one, but grief and loss occurs. Even I tell a lot of people, you know, you can't stay up forever. Eventually you got to come down. So transitioning from one job to another, there's something that you're losing. There may be like some good points that you've enjoyed in that previous place, or you're, you know, moving into a new home or going to a new city. There's a level of grief and loss that people experience, and we've talked a lot even about, you know, the family life cycle. A lot of families that we encounter will experience a level of grief and loss, you know, transitioning from one phase to the next. So you think about the family who we've had our little kids that we've raised, and now they're big kids and they're out on their own, and all of a sudden we're an empty nester. Grief and loss.
So
let's get more specific with that. Let's look at a family dynamic, family system who father abandoned them. Who the young male child doesn't have that male role model to help shape their personality and shape their masculinity. And so that can be considered grief and loss as well. And also the other spouse, you know, when they separate, you know, can kind of go through that periods of depression as they adjust to their new lifestyle.
And I know in dealing with African American families, not to just kind of put this just in one cultural type, but I know a lot of times in growing up in single family homes, if our parents, one is incarcerated, that and that goes undiagnosed. No one understands the longingness of wanting to have your dad or your mom with you. You're living with auntie or grandma, and you know you're no longer with that parent. I think a lot of times that goes misdiagnosed, and when a young person may start acting out in school, we see it as anger, or we see it as a behavioral issue, and we're quickly to diagnose that young person as an ADHD or you know, poor impulsivity, but it could very well be that that person is experiencing depression from that separation.
And you know, and when I'm engage a family, that's something that I look at, and I try to paint that picture for the parents to really to help them understand their child and where they are within their developmental stage, and also where they are as far as adjusting to that transition. And that's very common, you know, as far as children, adolescents, children being misdiagnosed. Even parents struggle to understand the symptomology of depression. They will look at or label it as defiant. They will label it as ADHD. They will label it as disruptive behavior. But I have to help them to understand, you know, let's get to the root of the problem. Let's let's look at the origin. Let's go back and see where did this problem start from, and let's try to paint a big picture to help you understand the severity of it and also contributing factors to that child's state.
And I think as family therapists, you know, that's why we try to look at things systemically. And it's definitely a systems issue. And when we speak of systems, we're talking about the family as a whole, as a unit, and moving together systemically across time, and looking at the different life issues that happens to the family. It happens to the family collectively, but it also happens to each person in that family individually. And individually we start to see that it impacts people in different ways.
And you made a great point in talking about how we look at a family, and another important piece of that, not only is it that family system, but it's the things that's connected to that family system that influence it. So, you know, the things that are going on in the community, the type of neighborhood that they live in, the type of school system that they're plugged into. Do they have a church, you know, that they're doing something with? The lack of employment or, you know, low employment, you know, opportunities. All those things impact that family unit and like you said, impact each individual.
Yeah, and so I think it's important for us therapists that we're able to unpack that.
Yes.
You know, that as we're doing our assessments and initially meeting with the families, that we're able to look at them as a system, as a unit, to take a look to see what is really going on and to see if some of the symptomology that we're looking at or dealing with could be depression. This episode was brought to you by Creative Spirits Counseling Center, transforming lives into creative spirits. 3 locations, Shelbyville, Louisville, and Danville, Kentucky. Also by the Brick Room of Shelbyville, Kentucky. Let us plan all of your events for you. First of all, help that person to know that, you know, it's okay.
Yes.
You don't have to feel like you're losing your mind, or you don't have to feel like, oh my God, this only has happened to me. You know, everybody that comes in, we all have our own gathering of a ball of some emotional things that we may not have unpacked. And it's important that, you know, when they enter into our rooms, that we're able to offer them that security and that place of safety, and help them to start unpacking those emotional issues that they may have put in and are deep-seated in their emotions.
And you're right. I think what you're speaking on is normalizing. You know, you try to normalize it, and I think what has been effective for me is identifying movie stars or athletes that my client can associate with, you know, that who struggle with depression, you know, and showing them that, hey, they were able to overcome this. You know, they were able to get through this process, and you know, and that helps me to reinforce my client's competency. You know, also help them identify times when they were able to overcome adverse situation or struggles, and that just kind of stroking them and letting them know, listen, you were able to overcome it then, and you can overcome it now. So reinforcing their competencies and their ability to overcome it is very critical.
Yeah, I think you come up with a great point. As therapists, some of the things that we actually do, you know, I like to talk about, like, from a narrative perspective, helping them to kind of reframe or rewrite their stories, because, you know, we come in, a lot of times we'll come into a place and we've only seen things from one perspective, but as we get a chance to unlayer and, you know, kind of dissect some of the things that they've encountered through the course of their life, sometimes you can redefine the thing that you thought was like the worst thing that could have ever happened to you. You look back and you're like, that wasn't, I mean, that was for my good. Like, that thing actually plays in my favor now. And so being able to just rewrite that story is such a huge deal.
I agree.
And that's critical, because a lot of clients don't understand that they have that power.
Yes.
You know, they have that power. They have the power of the pen. And there's a good analogy. Just read the narrative, rewrite their story, and give them that pen back. You know, physically give them that pen back, and they're all say, listen, you are now taking back the power. You are in control now. And you have an option. You know, we can work this. I can help you work through these processes where you can determine what your legacy is going to be and how your book's going to end. So, and just trying to empower them, I think it's very, very fulfilling and rewarding.
I think I agree with that. I agree with what both of you are saying. And I think it's important for us to help them to see that they don't have to use somebody else's measuring rod to determine how far they can go. And I think a lot of us, you know, can get caught up into that, but especially when we're dealing with in the areas of depression, that, you know, that a person comes in and they might look at your life or my life or look at somebody else's life and think, oh my God, you know, I would want to have that person's life, or a particular movie star or a particular person, and say, I want their life, and use their measuring rod for success. And I think it's important for us to help them to become independent, to help them to become resilient, and understanding that what they have gone through has built a toughness, a resiliency inside of them, and helping them to be able to overcome any things that they've gone through.
And that's so good.
Yeah,
that's so good.
I think some of the songs, a couple songs I know that comes to mind, and I know sometimes we use music therapy too, and that's very important and empowering. One is, it's with Beyonce and Kelly Rowland and Michelle, when they talked about I'm a survivor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a survivor. You know, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to work harder. And Whitney Houston, who came out with the song, I didn't know my own strength. You know, that I was struck down, that everything that could have happened to me has happened to me. But and in the event of those things, those events happening, I didn't know that I really had that strength. And I think it's up to us as therapists to help them as we're helping them to rewrite that narrative, to help them to see that they have that strength that they need. Because they come into us and they're feeling hopeless and overwhelmed by life and situations that have hit them and have affected them. So
yeah, but it's very important not to just tell them that they have the ability, being able to show them moments in their life where they overcame and be very specific and then kind of process that. You know, I think it reinforces like their ability, just kind of letting them know that, hey, wow, I did overcome that situation. You know, I should have been dead, or I should have been, you know, shot. You know, or should be in the hospital. You overcame all of those adverse situations. So this is no different, you know, and that's where we come in to help them process that and get them through it.
I think a couple of things too that are taboo that we don't talk about is the area of abuse and looking at, you know, if there's been sexual abuse or some type of childhood trauma that has happened to a person, just understanding that ball of that mass of experience, the negative experiences are some of the things that kind of can trigger that depression with a child, or with, and we see it manifest in adults.
And it goes back to the predisposition. Because if you have a child who is predisposed to that type of behavior, you know, statistics show that child is probably 30 to 40% more likely to model that behavior. You know, so that is very important, and being able to highlight that, you know, to the parents who may be a victim of domestic violence, or who may be a perpetrator of domestic violence. You know, in order to help break that cycle, we have to face it head on and acknowledge it for what it is.
And I think Bowen, he talks about it in the theory, his theory, Bowenian theory of family systems. He talks a lot about being able to take those emotions and those thoughts and to be able to separate those things. You know, be able to take the feelings and your thinking and be able to separate your behavior and your, just take those things and separate those things out so that you're not actually acting out of pure emotion. And a lot of times it's a buildup of just raw emotion. And I think about, you know, the males that I have worked with who come in and they're extremely angry. They come in and may present as being angry with their wife or angry with the life situation of where they are, and not understanding that it's an accumulative anger, that it's anger over the process of time, you know, of things that they have dealt with when they were younger.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, whenever based on hearing both of you guys, I keep thinking about that whole concept of complex or compounded trauma that people encounter. Because typically, if you have been in a very chaotic, I say that chaos tends to attract chaos with a lot of my clients. So somebody that has dealt with, okay, well, I was raised by my grandmother, and then I had a baby, you know, before I got out of high school, and then I may not have finished high school, and then I'm living with this kind of person, and they're hitting me, and my kids are having problems, and I can't get the job that I need. You just have trauma, you know, on top of trauma. And I mean, talk about having to fight to get through those layers. Oh my goodness.
And just helping them to be able to recognize that, just like what Damon said, giving them the ability to look at it and being able to recognize that in themselves, and then being able to give them the pen and say, you are the one that has overcome that. Now let's rewrite this narrative with the strengths, and helping them to see that those are strengths. When we talk about resiliencies, you know, that is strength. You know, how strong a person must be to be able to overcome domestic violence. How strong a person must be to be able to overcome childhood trauma. How strong a person has to be to deal with post-traumatic stress, some type of instant trauma that has happened in their life. I think here recently in the Louisville area, I know that there was a young baby that was on the porch with her family. And someone did a drive-by, and the baby was shot. The baby did nothing, but the baby was shot, and the baby eventually died. And the trauma that caused the family. And then to see them take that trauma and work with the community to help bring about more nonviolence within their area, to work with the officials and to work with the community leaders to turn that around. That's one of those ways that we have to take what has been given, take what has happened to us, and be able to turn that thing around so that we don't internalize that and accumulate that mass.
See, and you said it. I think that I consider it our job to tap into the brilliance of people that come into us, because at the end of the day, no matter what you've been through, everybody comes with a level of brilliance and resiliency and a desire to succeed and flourish in life, to thrive. And one of the things that we do, we take a mirror, you know, put it on that person and let them start to see their own brilliance and their ability to actually live successfully in life.
I love that. I love that.
And I have a saying that I say to all of my adolescents, and I think it's very powerful. At least I think it is. And that saying goes, you know, you're unique, you're different. You can't be duplicated, you can't be replicated. You're not your mom, you're not your dad. You are you. And only you can be you. So once you understand that, then that means that you are in control of you. And not no one else but you. And I find that to be very, very fitting to as far as what you just said, and very powerful.
And I think as we continue to just really reach out to the families that we serve in our communities, that it's very important that we let them know about that brilliance. I love that we let them know that it's okay to be you, and that we can remove the stigma of depression, that you don't have to live in that. For that person that's at home right now with the covers pulled up to your neck, we just want you to know that you do not have to stay there, that you have the brilliance and the resiliency to make it.